I've seen a flying saucer.
You've seen one?
Yes,
Where was this?
definitely.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
To cover up our mistakes.
I've met people who swear they've seen Bigfoot.
Join us for a journey into the obscure.
You are now listening to The Wow Pod. Show.
Welcome to the show.
Tonight's show is about a well-known, at least then, it was a New York Times bestseller. It's a report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. So not just is it possible, but is it worth it? So that, I think, is just in its title, it was intriguing enough that people wanted to read more.
So they pose the question, is peace, not only is it possible, but is it worth it to have it?
Yeah.
Like economically or?
All of the above. We'll get into that.
All right. Oh.
So some call the report from Iron Mountain the blueprint for tyranny. So there it is. That's the lead-in.
Oh, how many Bushes and Clintons and Obamas and well, Trump probably doesn't have it on his nightstand, but
no, but Barron read it twice in his travels back in time.
Or
maybe he wrote it.
Yeah, if not wrote it, he
now listen,
whispered in the ear of the cat who did.
The cat who did write it said, an author by the name of Lewin said that a John Doe requested to meet him in a coffee shop and told him that he was a part of the creation of this report and that it needed to be put out there for people to see what was going on. It was so profound. So here it is. The book is published in 1967 during the Johnson administration by Dial Press. And it puts itself forth as nonfiction and as a report by a government-paid panel of 15. Now, these 15 people, it's a study group. Now, their identities were to remain secret. In the original report, it had a bunch of footnotes that really gave it some legitimacy. It made it feel like this really took place. Like it was really footnoted at the bottom, and then, you could look back at different things that were mentioned and refer back to other studies and so forth.
So in this book, it's the footnotes are built into it.
Yes. So this study group.
Robin's asking what book. The book is called The Report from Iron Mountain?
The book is called The Report from Iron Mountain, and it is a study into both the desirability and capability of peace.
Mm-hmm.
So the book includes a claim that it was not meant to be intended for the public's view. It was this entire panel.
Barron didn't want it for
did
everybody.
Not want the public. It wasn't meant to be out to the public. Again, that makes it like everyone wants to read it.
Panel code word for Barron Trump.
Maybe.
For those of you who don't know, we did a show on
we'll do it again.
And wonderful travels of Barron Trump, and
he was a time traveler.
In the book,
written over 100 years ago.
Yeah, the book was written in the late 1800s. The protagonist, Barron Trump, had a a mentor named Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Or Pence was his name or something. And he traveled time. And then you've got the Simpsons showing us the future in their cartoon.
We'll cover the Barron Trump one again, because that's an interesting one, and there's new information to go along with it.
Yeah, we need to do that.
As this is all kind of panning out during his presidency, it's kind of ticking more marks. But this analysis that this panel did, at its conclusion, was that war, or a credible substitute for war, is necessary for governments to maintain power.
Yep.
Not just over their people, but over their nationality.
Yep. Wars are the health of the state.
Yes. So I think prior to the book being published, and even since the book was published, people want to argue that the economy is built to support the war machine, when actually historians have for a long time been able to point out that no, the war machine supports the economy. That you have to have the war machine for a thriving economy.
Yeah, that's my autistic libertarian mind starts spurging up and saying, prior to
This
World
is
War
as good as
II,
it gets.
prior to World War II, no, we didn't. I mean, when we needed to make Sherman tanks, Cadillac started spooling those out. Ford started making Jeeps and trucks, and Dodge made trucks, and Willys made Jeeps and trucks, and everyone jumped in and did their part. It was after World War II where we got this dedicated war economy, where prior to that, it was regular companies that made a civilian economy and made products for use, where a war economy is products of destruction, products that just go away.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is because of the Depression, because the war machine helped to lift us. The economy.
Yeah, I don't believe that either.
Well, that's the theory.
That's an argument that's made.
Yes, that the war machine provided taxpayer dollars.
Well, the facts are, oh man, we're getting into I've got a different show for this. Let's go on with your stuff.
So, controversy still. This book was a New York Times bestseller, and it's been translated into 15 languages. So it's not just like, fly-by-night little manuscript that made it onto the New York's bestseller list. It's been translated and it's been reprinted 4 times by 4 different companies.
Oh, it's all over the world. It's like the Sun Tzu of Art of War. It's just for everyone now.
Yeah. So the controversy is whether the book was satire, meaning this guy made it up, and it's a think tank logic kind of writing style, or was it genuinely the product of a secret government panel? And as we go along,
deep in the bowels of this innocent looking bunker,
as we go along, you'll start connecting some dots that lead a little bit more towards, okay, maybe it started as satire, and like you mentioned, they were like, that's actually a pretty good idea. Maybe we should, like, I don't know, meet about it or something. This guy's onto something.
Get a general down here.
I mean, or it really truly was the product of a secret government panel. We're unsure. But let's talk about Iron Mountain.
All right.
Because this Iron Mountain was initially a bunker for nuclear fallout. And it was founded in 1951, I think, and it was there was a widespread Cold War fears. And nuclear attack and other disasters were like looming. They were like, we were all training, like under your desk and all of those things. Like, basically the mask of today was get under your desk during nuclear fallout.
Hey, that fiberboard will save you from a nuclear bomb. Granted, you don't want to be saved, because
I've often said that when my husband's like, we need to build a bunker. I'm like, listen,
nope.
Bunker boy.
What we need to build
I want
is
to burn up quickly.
a big sign that says aim it here and tell me 10 minutes in advance, because that's where I'm standing.
Yeah, I don't want to live in a bunker. Thanks. So it's originally founded in 1951. It's Iron Mountain Atomic Storage Corporation. It opened its first underground vault in 1951, and its first sales office
Sales office for atomic.
in the Empire State Building, which was about 125 miles away.
So Iron Mountain, is it in Pennsylvania?
Yes, it's in Pennsylvania. Now, Iron Mountain's first customer, so outside of being a bunker where they actually had like bunk beds and meeting tables and food storage and such, it's built into a mine. So it's all man-made.
So they had a mine and they said, wow, that looks awful nice. Let's move an office park in there.
Yeah. So they separated these rooms and they started selling space. Like, you can store, during a nuclear attack, your patient files or customer files will be safe. Again, under the desk. Do they not understand what happens?
What do you mean my medical records went up in the blast that killed everyone?
Yeah, it's so, at any rate. So they stored microfilms and deposit records. Oh my gosh, so trivial. Duplicate signature cards. Just trivial. We're talking about a nuclear attack.
We've got the mainframe for the Dewey Decimal Periodic, whatever it is, in there. That's where the master is. So if you're ever wondering what your book's Dewey Decimal Muhammad is.
So at any rate, as the looming fate of nuclear attack, started to wane, it's now, through acquisitions, it's now privately owned by Pierce Lee Company, which is, it's a $1.1 billion company. It's on the New York Stock Exchange and all kinds of stuff. But what they store in the vault now,
tell me it's something even better.
They say all of your major motion pictures, the originals, are stored here.
Oh, yeah.
And
the important stuff.
National Geographic has a room there, and they're all temperature controlled and humidity controlled. And, I know what you're thinking with National Geographic. All of those are stored there forever and ever. And they say that that's all it is. Now, they also do say that they'll never release their client list. So who knows? Maybe
the Vatican might have a wing.
They may have some really high-level stuff there. There's several thousand people that are still employed there, so it's a big operation.
This must have been a big mine.
It's gigantic. Now, of course, you can't see the exact layout or, the exact space. It's very, very, even though it seems to me like it was always privately held in some respect, it's very secretive.
Flash a picture of its
so that's the entryway now.
Yes, that's the vestibule. As you walk in, look, it's nicely decorated.
So they also say that in this underground facility, that right now it is the largest data protection service in the world. So it's likely got, cooled memory storage and such that protects data, or perhaps it's a hub for, information to come and go and be protected there as well. So it is a real deal.
That's where they keep the internet.
Now we know.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, now found at Iron Mountain. So it is a real place, and that gave leverage also to the legitimacy of this report, because people had been hearing about Iron Mountain. I mean, it's a nuclear bunker. The government had been using it for a lot of meetings, and there was lots of military coming and going during this, these fear of nuclear attacks and all of that stuff. So lots of legitimacy was given to what could have been, we'll never really know, satire based on the location he chose. And if we talk about the things going on during Johnson's term, it was a lot of social things.
Yes.
And there was a lot of like social experimentation, I would think, in programs and such. He was kind of the leader in that. So the way this is laid out, it was very much, it feels like something that the government would have elected to, to put together during this particular time. Given what was going on.
Yeah, there's quite a bit going on then. I mean, the big hard time was right after Nixon got in. I think it was 68 and 69. I think 68 had 30 something bombings in the United States, but it started under Johnson.
Yeah.
And it was all about the Vietnam War. So it was getting pretty, that's what I'm worried about now, that we're moving into a time like that now where maybe the lull is just because it's so goddamn hot.
We can't do, it's too hot for revolution.
Yeah, I'm protesting at 3 a.m, boys.
Perhaps. So I think now's a good time to do a news break.
Yeah, so all right, we'll do a news break. So we're reformatting the show, everyone.
News break.
From here going on out, we're going to do the news in the middle, and we're going to kind of announce the show and build it like this, and we're going to do the show every Tuesday night at 7:30 unless something particular comes up.
Yeah, and then we'll do it from location.
Yeah, and hopefully there's some more fancier new things in the works, but Betsy's going to lead us off with a news story.
So my news, I thought it was funny. I found it in Global Times, and given all of the current microscopic detailing of what's happening in China, this comes to us from the Jingshe province.
Say that again, please.
Jingshe.
How do you spell that? Can I get a vowel?
And this is in East China. And a man surnamed Yi contacted the police recently. And he did because he bought drugs in May and was planning on selling them to his friends. His friends smoked 2 bags of the meth that he bought, but felt
the flower amphetamine.
But he tells the police, but felt nothing. So Yi was pissed, and he had been betrayed. So he called and he reported his dealer, whose name is Zhu, for selling him fake drugs. And he tells the police in his statement, "I put my trust in him. I even gave him a dealer fee each time I bought stuff."
But what if Zhu got ripped off too?
Listen, this stuff rolls uphill. Zhu's going to have to make his own police report.
Oh, God. It's going to...
So he spent 9,000 yen, which is about $1,290 here, on what turned out to be fake meth. And then, he just straight up mafia style turned the dude in. He's like, "We go down together."
It's Himalayan salt. The Mongol drug cartel finally got their revenge.
And so one comment on this says, "This man is so ruthless. He'll drag others down, even if it means getting himself in trouble." Yee, that's right. Bringing justice to the drug world.
Well, it's good to know that China has a Florida.
China does have a Florida.
All right. Well, tell me if you guys are ready for this.
Okay, I don't know. You were kind of leading up to it. You wouldn't even let me see what it was.
This is too good. Okay. So a father of 2 had a rough go of it. Okay. He got a blood infection on his what do they call it, the perineum, the taint.
The taint.
He got a taint infection, and said taint infection.
No.
We'll call the guy Mr. McDonald right now. Caused him to lose his penis.
From a taint infection?
Yes, it was a bad taint infection. So
How long did he let this fester?
So Mr. McDonald, I don't know how long. I don't know how long it takes to kill a penis. So Mr. McDonald I think he went to Marty McFly's doctor friend to get a cure. You know, the crazy doctor that invents the flux capacitor. So he goes to him, and the guy says, for the NHS funded this too. They grew him a new one on his forearm.
No.
But it took 4 years to grow. So for the last 4 years,
What?
he's been a dick arm. But it is finally.
Okay, I need to know.
It's finally culminated.
Was it growing this way or this way?
Okay.
Was it dangling?
Right now I'm flashing on the screen a picture of an ear that's grown. Now, we have grown body parts on people multiple times. So this
gives me the heebie-jeebies.
ear grown on a guy's arm. Now, I can't show you the picture because we'll get kicked off, but
it's dangling.
yes, it's a dangling one, and it's not zooming in for me. But if you look at it, it looks like it may be growing down his forearm, but when he holds his forearm up, maybe he could control through a certain blue pill how but for 4 years he walked around. He was all cock-armed. He walked around with this on his arm for 4 years, just swinging. Now, did it get in the way of clothing you buy? I just have lots of questions. And what was left on him? Was it, anyways, So, moral of the story is we can fix anything. And
fear not.
If you get even a paper cut on your taint, go to the doctor.
Oh. Don't let that fester, people. Listen. Humble yourselves, okay?
I like the picture he's holding on. It's all swinging down.
Oh, you need to tape that up. That is profane.
That's 4 years come to perfection. Now they're putting it on him, and the reports are that it works. I don't know if they've got like equipment underneath it. Maybe. I know for a long time they did a pump that was put on your hip, like those Nike shoes where you fill up the ankle part. They put a pump in there, and so you could pump it up and I mean, you don't want to over pump it because you don't want to shoot it across the room. It'd be a whole travesty. But
holy cow. You can't unsee some things, people. You can't. Don't go checking into this story. Don't go looking for the real pictures.
I wanted to dig deep, but
do yourselves a favor.
Seeing how we are going on Facebook and on YouTube, it wouldn't be a good idea for me to show that, and then it's just me and Betsy talking to each other. Anyways, let's get back to the show.
Oh, that news story is too much.
Could he not have gone to the doctor and say,
put it on my thigh?
No.
Why has it got to be on my forearm where I can wave it about?
I don't know, but I mean,
it's just skin, right? I mean, it's just got to be attached.
Were it me, I'd have been like, come on, doc.
That's all you got? I thought you were good at this.
Let's get some.
I want it to look like I have 2 arms.
That's right. That's right. I want the arm to be the small part of this.
Oh, okay. Back to reported Iron Mountain. So this writer lays it out that he was contacted by a Jane Doe, or John Doe, excuse me, a John Doe. There was men and women that sat on the study, but John Doe contacted him and said, I was a part of this. The people need to know.
John Barron Trump Doe.
Yes. And the very first thing that...
So the guy who wrote the book wasn't a part of it. He was just given this stuff.
Given this information, kind of like how reporters, give the WikiLeaks the information.
If I ever become a part of that, I'm going to be humming to myself the whole time.
Black sunglasses.
Oh, the whole time. I'm buying an overcoat and a Tribbley, maybe a fedora. I don't know. It depends on how the overcoat comes out. And what else do I need?
A fedora.
I don't know. Do you want to go Tribbley or fedora on that? I think you got to match it to the overcoat, maybe your belt. I've got to dig in deeper into.
You've got to get some
CIA
fashion help.
feng shui.
Yes. So the report, he gives him a ton of information. It's like, okay, here it is in its entirety. Here's all the footnotes. Here's everything. And they kind of get conversing back and forth. And he says, well, how did you guys come to these conclusions? And he mentions to him that they played peace games. Now, for those that aren't aware, there was...
So peace games?
Yeah.
So like...
what happens if peace breaks out?
No, I was going to say like peace games, like the 70s show in the basement, kind of a hazy room.
Not that kind of peace.
What if Skittles never had a brown, man?
What's beer made of? I don't know, man. I was just wondering. So...
Oh, I know what it's made of.
Yes, I know you do. So he says they played peace games, and it was the idea, it was a method that they developed during the course of this study, kind of a forecasting technique, that they could, take it in its primitive phase and find, by product of this study, some dependable social phenomena that was taking place. So they were able to, for those of you that don't know, prior to the pandemic, there was a big symposium held where most nations were in attendance, and they talked about a pandemic.
You're talking about Event 201 or Dark Winter?
Event 201. Well, Dark Winter's another one. We need to cover that. But Event 201, you can watch it all on YouTube.
Yeah, you can go watch it. It's boring and dry. They do it in like but it's got like
a conference room.
Yeah, and like a conference room in like a hotel or something. It's got like Bill Gates and all those yahoos there, and they're talking about how do we,
what happens if this? What happens if this? And they've got all of the world powers together. And Event 201 was planning for a worldwide pandemic. What would it do to both socio and economic?
A worldwide right now.
Yes. And Event 201 took place approximately 2 years ago.
No, it was like last October.
Yeah, a year and a half. We're coming up on 2 years.
Yeah. No, we're coming up on 1 year.
Oh, so it was in 2019?
I think so.
So even sooner. So they get together and they're like, let's talk about this. So this, written back in 1967, claims that they were actually doing that, but they were doing it on the idea that we had been at war so much, and we had been, the economy had been bolstered by war. What happens if peace suddenly breaks out?
We lose 20% of our economy overnight.
Yeah. And then what does that look like? So what they were trying to study is, A, is it even possible for peace to break out? And B, should it break out? Or should factors be continually put into place to keep us in this state of war to continue to fund both our economy and our nationalism. So they played these peace games, they called them. Not like a game of chess, but much like Event 201.
A game of Risk.
Where they would have this like elaborate high-speed, algorithms back and forth. Well, then this happens. Okay, well, then I stop buying that. And they sat in, it was 2 years to create this report. And they just went through after scenario after scenario
Do we
after
know
scenario.
when the report was written?
So from what John Doe has said, it was written in the beginning parts of 67, but it was ordered by the government in 65.
Okay.
So they play these peace games to try and figure it out. John Doe says the only thing I want to go on record, I would, gladly abandon my own anonymity if it were possible to do so without, compromising the others that are a part of this. He says, I want to go on record for one thing only, and that is because we need widespread public discussion and debate about the elements of war and the problems of peace. And he had hoped that the publication of this report would kind of initiate that it would initiate discussion, like, what are the elements, the economics of war, and what are the problems of peace? That is so backwards. It for the rest of the world, unless you've had a chance to, like, war is bad, right? It's just bad.
Yeah, you're killing people.
It's bad. War's bad. End of discussion. But they are arguing in this report that it's necessary and that peace is worse.
I've not argued this, but I've thought process out in my mind before that, let's say even if our economy is 5% reliant on wartime buildup, 5% is a pretty big hit. It's really huge on an economy. I mean, imagine taking 5% just out of your household income. What changes would you have to make?
Yeah.
What would your kids' school clothes look like, or your dinner table look like, or your entertainment look like? Something would have to be shaved off. And that's kind of what James, military industrial complex.
Yeah. So the very first thing they studied in this report is disarmament. I mean, obviously, you would have to have a disarmament of the entire world. There would have to be a global disarmament. What would that mean? What would be the expected impact, not just on the American economy, but, as a byproduct, the world economy? And what does the socio-national economy look like?
Yeah.
If you are disarmed.
Yeah. How do you, well, one, you'd have to look at a transfer. You'd have to say, all right, General Electric, take all those M1 Abrams engines you build and turn it over and start making engines for flying cars. McDonnell Douglas, stop making those bombers and build the bodies of the flying cars. And how do you get, Robin's asking, how would you prove it?
That you were disarmed.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that becomes the socio piece. Do
people remember the book Ender's Game?
Yeah.
There was a build up to that where they put satellites with just iron rods, just kinetic rods that would hover around the earth. And they put it in the control of India in the book. And India was kind of the protectorate of the world nation at the time. But I agree. I don't know. Is it possible? I mean, I don't know if you have to disarm, but I think I would.
for permanent peace.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
That's
Well,
and that's kind of what this report it came to. It came to that peace without permanence is not really worth even looking towards, because if there's no level of permanence, now you've just disarmed yourself.
yeah, and one thing I mean, we got to quit going on ventures overseas. We have to stop doing that. But I understand why we're doing it. We're doing it because oil is the lifeblood of the world, and there's deeper. If people are looking at the conflicts we're in on just one layer, then they're missing the actual reasons that are beneath it.
So they came up with several different models of disarmament and what it would look like, and how, not just the displaced economy or the economic implications that these scenarios cite, but also the failings of the nationalities or the nations to have this sense of this feeling of safety by their own military. So not just the economic fallout, but kind of the socio-economic fallout, where we no longer trust our government. Okay, we don't already, but we no longer trust our governments or our military to protect us. What does that look like? And disarmament scenarios, none of them played out good. They tried like 6 or 7 different scenarios and just kind of playing them out, and they all failed.
Mm-hmm.
So the next
But
idea,
then again, were these guys a think tank that wanted the permanent state of war?
well, the think tank, from what I've gathered, is made up of all different kinds. So we've got psychologists and psychiatrists and generals and economists and mathematicians, and they really brought together like ad hoc group of people that would not normally work together if this in fact took place. So, social organization, or the way that our society then interacts with other societies, would have to change as well. So then that was the thought, that the United Nations. Now, they figured that if there was a disarmament, a global disarmament, there would have to be heavy investment into a UN army so that we could, I guess, maintain peace, by not being peaceful. I don't know.
A global response.
Yes. So then they went into okay, well, let's talk about the functions of war, because if disarmament, it doesn't really play out, what are the functions of war? They talked about, of course, economic. We've covered that already. But also, they came to some pretty strange ideas, that peace threats and what they do to the stock market, and historically, threats of peace drive the stock market lower.
Yeah.
And if peace breaks out, would any of us really be ready for it? There's also political functions of war, obviously. These functions essentially are organizational. It's the existence of a society as a political nation, and part of its definition, an attitude or a relationship toward other nations, or foreign policy. So if a nation's foreign policy can have no substance, it lacks the means of enforcing its attitude towards other nations. So, to some degree, war allows us to maintain our nation's foreign policy.
Well, that was one of the arguments in 1984, was that they were at war with East Eurasia. We've always been at war with East Eurasia. And then the next morning, the news comes out and says, we're at war with Atlantica. We've always been at war with Atlantica. East Eurasia's our friend, or something like that.
Yeah. And then sociological, it's the most obvious of these functions is the time-honored use of military institutions to provide anti-social elements with an acceptable role in the social structure, if that makes sense. The disintegrative, unstable social movements, loosely described as fascist, have traditionally taken root in societies that have lacked adequate military or paramilitary outlets to meet the needs of the elements.
So
we're seeing that
comes,
today.
Fascism comes
rises
from Italy. It started out in Italy. And, well, okay, it started out in Italy, really took hold in Spain. Nazi Germany mirrored a lot of its policies off of fascism, but they added a heavy socialist bent that's common in all of German's political doctrines include a socialism bent. So yeah, I can see that.
So the analysis goes on to talk about even as complex as like ancient civilizations, and this is where things get weird, the wide use of blood sacrifice. And if one were to limit consideration of these cultures whose regional hegemony was so complete that the prospect of war had become virtually inconceivable. So, meaning that we've replaced ritual killing with war, and the ritual masked a broader and more important social function.
So we're doing just what the Aztecs did.
Yeah, blood
but we're
sacrifice.
doing it somewhere else. We're doing it in Yemen right now,
and it's
in Iraq, and in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So it's the idea that this barbaric guise of blood sacrifice really just became a socially organized function of war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I can, we got a piece of God's. Sun won't rise tomorrow if we don't,
Yeah. So now there's also non-military functions of war that, if you're going to transition, we have to, they said that they needed to to hammer out. Okay, so the first one, war as a general social release. Please tell me it's about releasing and redistribution of undifferentiated tensions. War provides...
Doesn't sports do that?
Boxing, people.
Yeah.
It says war provides for the periodic necessary readjustments of standards of social behavior, the moral climate. That's why civil wars break out. It's not about politics. You think it's about politics, and it's not about people in power. You think the people in power. It's about moral climate. It's about the shift in moral climate, and they recognize that as a social release, war breaks out to readjust the standards of social behavior, or to shift that social climate back. Now, war as a generational stabilizer. This again. These don't make sense when you first read them until you like, oh shit, they do make sense. So, as a generational stabilizer, the psychological function served by other behavior patterns in other animals enables the physically deteriorating, the elder generation, to maintain its control of the younger, destroying it if necessary. You young whippersnappers.
So
war is a generational stabilizer.
Hmm.
War as an ideological clarifier. We see this in the East all the time. Palestine and that it's dualism that's characterized the traditional dialectic of the branches of philosophy, and it's to define that there cannot be more than two sides to a war. You're either with us or you're against us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an ideological clarifier. And then war as the basis for international understanding. You want to get to know about the Vietnamese? Vietnam. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, but before the development of modern communications, the strategic requirements of war provided the only substantial incentive for the enrichment of one national culture with the achievements of another. Now, I would say we are in a different war, and we're seeing it through technology.
Mm-hmm.
War has changed so that it's not hand-to-hand combat, but it's still the same. It's the enrichments of one national culture with the achievements of another through stolen technology or stolen, achievements, much like we see, them coming to take things and us going to take things through by way of technology. So that makes sense. Now, this is where it gets really weird. They concluded that if there was no war, if we went for even just a few years without without giving light to the economic stability that war gives and takes, because it really gives it in ghost form. It doesn't actually give it. Mm-hmm. It feels like it gives it because people are employed and bustling and things are being shipped out and it, the economy gets this big fake boost. But they came up with, listen, if peace suddenly breaks out, these are things that are gonna, these are some things that we could try. So these are alternatives. One is a pandemic.
Well, okay.
So you could unleash a pandemic.
Man, what would we call said pandemic?
Pandemics create.
Now, China's not in any hot wars except for their annual fist fight-a-thon that went deadly this year with India in the top of the mountains.
Yeah, and there Hong Kong.
Now
that's getting hotter.
It is, but it's the Hong Kong police who are emboldened to China that are doing the fighting over there. I don't think there's any Chinese military in Hong Kong at this time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know, what's actually there or not. But what a pandemic does is give a focus to the world and a reason for, say, governments to spend trillions of dollars.
Say $4 trillion.
That would normally be spent on military spending, giving again that false.
But we're doing both of them right now.
Yeah, because we're still emboldening our military.
And
yeah, maybe Barron didn't tell his dad about all of this.
Barron, buddy, take notes. Take notes.
Okay, so
you can get you can carry a small laptop, a cell phone, something you can hide. So when you go back into the past, you don't look crazy scary.
The next one they propose is a series of giant space research programs. SpaceX.
Space Force.
Yes.
NASA.
I mean, I just watched them land in the ocean a couple days ago.
That was SpaceX. They came back
after being on the space station.
They do an awesome recovery in that.
Yeah.
And they don't have as much waste as NASA did.
So they say that the development of long-range sequence of space research projects with what they call largely unattainable goals, what that does is it doesn't phase it's unlikely to phase itself out. Regardless of the predictable surprises, the universe is so big that if you don't want to go to war, then you should go to space.
Those I can go for because we'll get technology advances and maybe we may accidentally stumble on something positive.
Correct.
The pandemic just hurts a lot of people and makes me wear a stupid mask at Walmart and have to smell my own breath. My breath does not smell good, Betsy. I don't like it.
The next one, which was pretty interesting to me, was claims of gross pollution of the environment. Kind of a pandemic for nature.
Okay.
I don't know, like climate change?
Well, yeah. And if we want to look at the biggest pollutant, it's war.
So climate change, they talk about this, at length about, you have to give it a time limit. They did that several times.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make it big enough that it affects not regionally, but everyone on the planet. And it has to end in certain death. In order for it to work, these are the boxes it has to check. And it has to be supported by the scientific community.
Has to be an Armageddon scenario.
Yes, one way or another, it has to be supported by the scientific community. So, climate change, ringing a bell?
Wow.
And the last one, I was like, okay, I'm reading this, literally reading this. And I glance up, and Tucker Carlson is talking about how the Department of Defense has actually now confirmed that they have retrieved off-world aircraft.
The aliens.
So
that's one of our upcoming shows. We're going to dive deep into that in the next month.
Here's the last one, people. Creatures from other planets.
Yep.
Or from outer space. Or an out-of-world invasion threat.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it says start by releasing information about flying saucers.
And they did that. Well, they've been doing that for the last 4 years.
Yes.
Through the DOD and the Navy. Oh, yeah.
So these become, now, I would say, any of these, with the exception of this last one that I'm going to mention, I would take over war.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens, bring them on. I want to meet an alien. I want to be abducted.
I would take our current pandemic over war. The Spanish flu, probably not. The bubonic plague, probably not. But our current pandemic.
Especially if it's created.
Yeah.
If all of this hysteria is part of this, step one, step two.
The problem with the wars is they always come home. Look at how our militaristic police have accelerated. How often did you see a police officer prior to 2001 carrying an AR-15 openly?
Yeah.
I don't remember once.
Yeah.
Except in, say, tactical situations where it was called for. But now you see them all the time.
Yeah.
And granted, I like that the police have drifted into more less lethal means, than, they used to have the club and the dog, but now they've got a taser, which is still
there's some cool stuff coming out.
The foam stuff, I don't know why that isn't employed. You take that foam stuff up to Portland and it's a sticky mess. It's slippery and then sticky. And then they've got to wash it off.
It's a nightmare.
And if the guy escapes, he's going to spend hours in the shower with peanut butter.
Yeah. So the last one is probably the most macabre. And maybe it wasn't meant to be, but it comes across as, the more I think about it, I mean, it's probably already going on. It is reintroduction of slavery, consistent with modern technology and political processes.
Kind of already have that.
Yes.
Our modern prison
Like,
system.
It's
actually written into, what is it, the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, I don't.
Slavery, you can't have slavery unless they're convicted of a crime.
And so I don't want to imagine that they've already gone through this whole report and that we're just, just checking them off, okay, well, we're not going to go to war with another country, but first release the pandemic, and then let's talk about aliens and let's get into the space program.
They're trying everything out.
Oh, shit, that didn't work,
Trump stumbled on this book that Barron left in the hallway, and now he's like,
well, shit, they tried the
or maybe it's
the
Xi
climate
Jinping
change.
or-
Okay, that didn't work. All right, slavery's been going on. That's not working. All right, let's do aliens and let's do Space Force. And then he was like, hey, who else had this? China has released the pandemic. China must have a copy of this.
Yeah. God damn it, Xi Jinping. I'm trying it, not you.
So it's an interesting report in the sense that it's dry as dust, but completely plausible.
Yes.
And I think that the reason it's got such staying power with conspiracy theorists is because they just keep using everything in it.
Well, yeah.
Do something different. You don't want us to believe it, do something different.
The question is this book such clear common sense type stuff they thought of that it's going to happen anyway, or is it a guide?
How could you have foreseen this climate change fiasco?
Well, we're getting ready to close up the show, so Cabin in the Woods. I never saw that, Robin. I need to watch that. We're going to open up the show now to answer comments and questions.
Yeah.
And give our own thoughts on it while we go along. Kind of what do we think? So,
do y'all want to hear what the final was?
Yes, and let me give out the call-in number. If you've got Zoom, it's 437-838-5171. I'm also going to open up our Skype now, and let's get that going. And well, I'll try to open up our Skype now, and we'll you guys will be able to call in if you want to call in on Skype. If you don't have Zoom, you may as well go ahead and get it. It's free. And for the Skype, my name is Jared, or 1975 Jared Anderson. And you can just go ahead and Skype in, or we'll be reading the comments as we go along. I'll be watching those.
So in conclusion, this isn't a very long report. It's like 79, 80 pages. And some of that is the foreword written by Lewin, who was like, this is where I got it. This is where we met. This is, the way that I understand the information. But in conclusion, they said, first of all, peace is neither remotely possible, not even hypothetically, unless this unified program is developed and every single nation is on board unequivocally and not, rearming themselves in the background. So in other words, it must be done by force, meaning you disarm them forcefully by first building up a UN type army that infiltrates every country and takes their arms and breaks down their nationality by force. And then you replace it with one of these alternatives, which it sounds like, we've already got all the alternatives. They're going to have to come up with something else. So basically, peace is neither probable or worth doing.
Yeah, that's
It gives a whole new feeling to
So-
war. When I read this in the beginning, I mean, war is bad. Let's not do war. And then you kind of start seeing, okay, well, I get, okay, I'm starting to understand some of the war machine. To step down away from that completely would, like you said, be disastrous. So how do we do it generationally, one generation after another? I don't know if it's ever even possible.
it sounds like it sounds like the belief is that it has to be it sounds like the belief is that there has to be strife.
Yeah. There has to be a creative development of possible substitute institutions for the principal non-military functions of war. And then there has to be careful matching of such institutions against the criteria summarized in this report as refined, revised, and extended by the agency. Then you have to test it and evaluate it. And then the development and testing has to be, it has to establish a comprehensive program. And then there has to be wide-ranging schedule of, programs or adjustments suitable for reducing the dangers of unplanned transition to peace.
So the convincing part is that probably a society that's large and has any type of industrial capability, is that it has to be in a war. Maybe. I mean, right now, Russia's not in a war. There's kind of some hot areas, Ukraine and Chechnya, Georgia.
Are they feeding others war machines?
Well,
because that becomes, kind of another part of
but
this.
they're in a couple of smaller conflicts, so maybe that's enough. We're obviously overstretched, but China's in a couple small conflicts with the Pacific there around Asia, that the Pacific Ocean that keeps changing names between the China Sea and the Vietnam Sea. And so maybe that's China's conflict. You got places that aren't in war, that aren't involved in anything. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's one or two.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to now Cabin in the Woods, Robin. I've never seen that. I need to watch it. I'll try to check that out this week.
I don't know if I've seen that either,
but I think it's on Netflix, so I'll dig it up and watch that. And so far, no one's jumping in or joining. The number I gave out audibly is wrong. They changed it on me. That was the number we ran with forever. But I posted in the comments the correct number. But I don't know. I've got to chew on this one for a while. That is an interesting thought.
You could pull up the entire PDF file and read through it. It goes into a lot more detail, and it doesn't read like satire. It reads like a think tank, and it reads like, scientific discovery. And it's got some compelling points, and it's got some that when you first read it, you're like, no, well, yeah, it's not going to happen. But then if you really think about it, like the slavery one, okay, so it's consistent with both modern technology and political processes, the way that we lock people up. So, and we do have them work. So, it's an interesting read. It's dry. And some people take it very biblical. I did not take it biblical. I didn't make any reference back to.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of. I didn't see a lot of religion in there. I saw a lot of pessimism, but not any religion.
And maybe it's because I'm not religious. Maybe those of our listeners that are religious will automatically pick up on those. There are a couple of YouTube videos that take a very biblical Armageddon type approach to this.
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, this is the second coming, and this is how we know, if you refer back to this and that. And you can read through, you can watch that one and do your research. But to me, this was one of two things. This was an actual think tank coming up with actual ideas about what it means to live peacefully. What is the side effect, so to speak, of peace? And what are ways to, or alternatives to war in order to get there? Or this truly was satire, and this feller made this all up. There was never a John Doe. He made this whole damn thing up, and it has become a playbook. Now,
It's almost like there's nothing new.
yeah. It has become its own conspiracy legend. One or the other.
Yeah.
I don't know which way I lean, but it was interesting.
All right. Well, I think we'll close up the show now. No one's calling in.
That's
Again, another week of no one wanting to contribute. But come back next Tuesday. We're going to talk aliens.
We're going to talk some aliens.
It's time to talk aliens. We'll see you then next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m.
Awesome.
Yep, same WOW time, same WOW station. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Have a great week.
Not a sign of a human. Why does it feel still? Not a sign of a human.